Brent Venables and Ben Arpogel took to the podium ahead of their week one matchup with Illinois State. What did they have to say coming out of fall camp about some of the position battles and what we're to see from Oklahoma this Saturday coming up here on Locked On Sooners?
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Sooner Nation? Welcome to Locked On Sooners, and thank you for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there tuning in and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're going to do something new this season where we go live after each press conference to just react and break down what Brent Venables and whoever else gets to speak at the podium during their weekly press conference. We'll do that here around noon 30, depending on when Brent Venables gets done. He did take a little bit of a shot at the media for commenting on how long his opening statements can be sometimes, which, hey, take your shots, coach. I appreciate that. You know, fire back a little bit. It's good times. But the Oklahoma Sooners, they're a team that had a lot of interesting questions on the depth chart. And I want to start there because when asked about the depth chart, it all came back to just the competitiveness and the talent and what these guys put on tape during fall camp and with their work in the offseason that led to them getting the positions that they got on the depth chart. Jaren Kanak is a perfect opportunity or a perfect example of this. Ben Arbuckle, when he was asked about Kanak, he said that he just made plays every time that the ball came his way, that he was prepared, that he was consistent. He said he was consistent on the field. He was consistent in the film room. He was somebody that understood the concepts of how to get open, and he earned the right to start for this team. And I think that's great. Like, that's what you want to see, right? You want to see players go out and take jobs, not necessarily be given jobs or not necessarily see those jobs just handed out because, oh, this guy's got big time potential. This guy was a 4-star. That guy's a 5-star. No, you want to see somebody go out there and earn a job. And so that's an exciting revelation about Jaren Kanak making that transition from linebacker to tight end. Everybody was wondering, how was he going to handle, blocking in line? How was he going to handle being out in space, trying to catch passes? And from what it sounds like, so far, so good for Jaren Kanak. Now he'll have to do it against other competition, teammates that he doesn't really know, and guys that he's going to have to try to get open against that maybe he's only seen on film, whether it's Illinois State or Michigan in week 2. And so we'll see how he responds to playing against somebody other than his own teammates. But the athleticism is there. The speed is there. The playmaking ability is there. All of that comes very natural to him. Now it's just a matter of honing in and being consistent week to week and seeing where he goes from there. Brent Venables also was, very adamant about a few players as well. Cortland Guillory was maybe one of the more glowing play or remarks that he had about a player, and just talked about how he was confident but humble, said he was aggressive, and that's part of what earned him the opportunity to go and get the starting opportunity week 1 because of that aggressive mindset. He's confident, but he's humble, knowing like, hey, even though I'm pretty good, there are still things that I've got to work on. And I think that's what you want, right? You want that from a young guy. You want them to be confident. You want them to know, hey, I'm good at this game. I can go play this game, especially a cornerback. You want that cornerback to have maybe some confidence that you're like, oh man, that might be a little bit cocky, but you want a cornerback that's going to go out there and act like they can shut everybody down, that they can cover everybody, that they can't get beat, even though they're going to get beat. That's just what happens when you get on an island sometimes at cornerback. Even the greats get beat from time to time. But you want them having that self-assuredness, that confidence to go out and perform because it's a lonely island out there on the outside at cornerback. And so I'm excited to see just how he's going to perform when he gets out on the field. I think of all the players on the defensive side of the ball, he might be the one that most everybody's excited to see because we've heard so much talk about him through spring ball, through the summer, through fall camp, that there's reasons to be excited. And there's reasons to, look forward to what he can bring to the table, because if that's somebody that goes and locks down a corner spot, well, you're set for the next 3 years, at least at one cornerback spot with a guy like Cortland Guillory. He's got the coverage ability. Now it's just a matter of going through an SEC season where, hey, you're going to get beat. How do you respond? And according to Brent Venables and the coaching staff, he's responded the right way when he's gotten beat in practice. You're going to get beat. Every good corner gets beat. Great ones get beat. I remember a Dallas Cowboys playoff game a few years ago where Jalen Ramsey got beat by Terrence Williams or Amari Cooper. Michael Gallup. That's who it was. It was Michael Gallup, not Terrence Williams. That's a few years before. So great corners are even going to get beat from time to time, but it's how they respond. The great ones are able to shrug it off and get on to the next play. And if Cortland Guillory is able to do that, when maybe a Cam Coleman gets the best of him, sometimes you just have to shake your head and like, he got me that time. Well, I got to step up and bounce back the next time. But just talked about his passionate and his energetic personality, talked about his physical abilities with the length, the physical toughness. And I think that's going to be an interesting aspect of this too, because against Michigan in week 2, you're going to need corners that can come up and they can hit and they can tackle in the run game. They can support the front 7 in the run game. And if Cortland Guillory is up to the task, that's huge, man. Again, him and Gentry Williams on your outside cornerback, that gives you 2 very physical corners that you can, one, play a little bump and run man coverage. They can play some press man, but you don't have to worry about them being liabilities in the run game when teams want to stretch wide because they're willing to come up and they're willing to hit. So again, excited, encouraged by that. Brent Venables talked also about Fabechi Wiwu. This is one of those players that he played all 13 and started all 13 games for Oklahoma last year. And when he was returning, everybody's like, I don't know. Oklahoma needs to try to find a way to upgrade that position because he was just kind of okay. But yeah, it's great. He's been doing really well. Brent Venables talked about how he's more aggressive. He's got a better body. He's more physical and more consistent. And if you get the Fabechi Wiwu that you got against Alabama last year, or even a better version of the guy than you got against Alabama last year, that's an encouraging sign for the offensive line. It's a group that still has a lot of competition that's playing out across the entirety of the offensive line, except at right guard. And I think that's a testament to the growth and development that Fabechi Wiwu undertook in this offseason. And so looking forward to seeing what he looks like, how he performs, given that he is the starting right guard. There's nobody that's listed as a co-starter with Fabechi Wiwu across the rest of the offensive line. Yeah, there is competition. Ben Arbuckle was asked about that and about why they still had some competition. Was it because they just didn't really have an answer or because guys were competing? And Arbuckle mentioned, he said, hey, we're having great competition out there in fall camp. And we just want to see more. We want to see how these guys respond and how they perform against, other teams. And we're going to rotate these guys a lot. We're going to play them a lot, and we're going to see who the best 5 are going to be. And eventually we're going to settle on 5, but they want to see them in live competition. And Illinois State gives them a great opportunity to do that. I don't think we have a definitive answer as to who the starting 5 will be all season long, but because you're going to have to go play a Michigan game. And if the 5 that you roll out there for the first snap play well against Michigan, then okay, maybe that's your 5. But if somebody struggles a little bit, if maybe somebody's not ready to go take on a big time defensive front, then maybe you have to think about switching it up a little bit. And again, some of it, injuries might end up changing some of this up, but they like who they've got on the depth chart, and we'll just kind of see how it all plays out. But I mean, the offensive line competition, to me, we're in a good place as opposed to last year where you're going into the season and you've got so many injuries along the offensive line that you're just having to throw guys out there and hope that somebody's going to step up and hold on to a job and take a job and prove that they can play really good college football. This year, I think it's a much better spot where you've got 5 guys, 10 guys or more that are competing for snaps and making the decision difficult on the coaches. That's a great thing. So we'll see. I think it's going to be fascinating to see how that one plays out. Arbuckle also spoke about just the way that the team celebrates and how they react and how they find energy in celebrating the small things. And it reminded me a lot of like Patty Gasso and the OU softball team, right? They were under a lot of fire for celebrating walks, celebrating a hit by pitch, celebrating a single, like the little, a base runner advancing, celebrating an ending pop fly. They were under a lot of criticism for that, but Ben Arbuckle kind of went into that a little bit more when he spoke with them, and he said, football's a game. We're going to celebrate the small victories and celebrate other successes. And that's something that he also carries from Brent Venables. And Venables spoke on, he's like, hey, we didn't really have a whole lot to celebrate offensively last year. And that was because, one, they were so beat up. Two, the defense was just dominating camp that there wasn't much to celebrate. But I find it encouraging that there has been a lot to celebrate offensively, and that John Mateer has rallied the troops and basically say, hey, we're going to go celebrate. We're going to be energized. We're going to be encouraged by what one another do. We're going to be excited, and we're going to go and celebrate even the small things. And again, the celebrating the small things, it brings out the passion. It brings out the energy. I love it. Again, I loved it when OU softball did it, and maybe it was just because it was OU softball, but even seeing other programs do it across softball this past spring, celebrating walks, celebrating a hit by pitch, things like that. It's fun, man. You've got to be able to find ways to enjoy the sport, because it can be a grind. It's so much more than what maybe it used to be, where it was you show up to practice, you go home. Now there's, film room study, there's meeting room study, there's walkthroughs, there's extra player practices, there's the actual practice, there's weightlifting and strength and conditioning and all that, to where it is a constant. These guys are under so much pressure. Go celebrate, go have fun. If you pick up a big first down, celebrate it. If you get hit coming across the middle, but you hold on to the ball, celebrate that too. So encouraging there. He also talked about whether or not he was going to be in the booth or on the field. And Ben Arbuckle said he's going to be on the field. That's where he likes to be, because he likes to be able to look his quarterback in the eye and see how they're feeling, see what they're thinking, to be able to make adjustments, to immediately communicate with the quarterback after a drive, whether it goes well, whether it doesn't go well. And that's kind of fun, and this is something that he's been doing. So I'll be curious to see just kind of how that plays out on the sideline. They haven't had somebody on the sideline, I think somebody said on social media, since Lincoln Riley was here. I guess I totally blanked on the reality that Jeff Levy was up in the booth, but he and Arbuckle and John Mateer have such a great relationship that you want them communicating so much, and you want Ben Arbuckle to be able also communicating with the other quarterbacks too, because not only is John Mateer the guy he's leading, but while he's communicating with John Mateer, he's indirectly communicating with Michael Hawkins Jr. as well. And so everything that John Mateer hears from Ben Arbuckle on the sideline, Michael Hawkins Jr. is going to hear the same as well. And so Hawkins is going to be learning, even if he's not necessarily getting those snaps at the moment. He's going to play this week against Illinois State. How much he plays, I can't wait to find out. But that Ben Arbuckle is on the sideline communicating with Mateer. Hawkins is going to be in earshot, trying to grasp everything that Arbuckle is saying, because he's going to be able to apply that to himself, either when he's in the game or when he's the starter one day. So I kind of like that. John Kuzieski will be up in the booth, the assistant offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach. What else did he have to say? Ben Arbuckle talked about the wide receiver group and how competitive they've been. Keontez Lewis being a veteran, somebody who just knows how to attack practice and knows how to attack the game. So he's been really, really encouraged by that. And even talked about Ivan Carrion and the way he's attacked fall camp. This is a kid that, he had a really good game against Navy. He had like 7 catches for 70-something yards, showed that he's got the ability to get open and win and use that length. And we've seen some highlights from OU football come out that highlighted Ivan Carrion and his ability. The size is just tremendous. It's a matter of just learning the nuances of the wide receiver position. But Arbuckle's been impressed with the way that Ivan Carrion has attacked practice, not just going through the drills or going through the team stuff, but attacking the football in the air. attacking safeties in a blocking situation. He's just getting after it and getting physically aggressive. And then he even talked about, Elijah Thomas and how he's fed off the veterans and how he's fed off of everything that everybody's saying in the meeting rooms and things like that. So, encouraging stuff from those guys at wide receiver. And Arbuckle basically said the wide receivers, they brought it every single day that they were out there at camp. And we know it's been a competitive camp from the wide receiver perspective. They've gone out there, they've made plays. We've seen a lot of highlights coming out, and I'm sure it's not even a tenth of what's been going on, but Isaiah Satania, Deion Burks, Jacob Jordan, Keontez Lewis, Ivan Carrion, Elijah Thomas. I mean, there have been so many wide receivers making plays in camp that OU football has been able to have a diverse set of highlights about the wide receiver room during fall camp. Going to break down a few more things that Brent Venables said here in this live edition of Locked On Sooners in the post press conference reaction. We'll do that here in just a second, coming up on Locked On Sooners. And today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Hey, today is August 26th. It is FanDuel Futures Day, a brand new holiday for football fans, for bold predictions and preseason hunches. For 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL season predictions. So whether you're calling your MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, or ready to crown your Super Bowl champ before week one even kicks off, this is your moment. You want to take a flyer on an MVP race? Well, hey, listen, Dak Prescott sitting there at plus 4,000. You may not like the Dallas Cowboys. You may not even love the Dallas Cowboys, but that's some pretty impressive value there for Dak Prescott, that if the Dallas Cowboys are in the playoffs, if they go win the NFC East, he could very well be in the MVP discussion. So if you want to play a long shot, Dak might be your guy. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bets now, because Futures Day is one day and one day only. FanDuel, play your game. Again, thanks for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there. Tune in and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Again, doing something a little bit different this year, where we're going to go live after each press conference just to give you initial reaction to what was said. Ben Arbuckle, last thing on what Ben Arbuckle had to say before we get into more of my notes about Brent Venables. He said about the running back room, because that was a very interesting subject of conversation after Oklahoma released the depth chart, and Jaden Ott, the star transfer running back from Cal, was listed as third on the depth chart. Now, Ott has been out for much of fall camp because of an injury to his shoulder, so he's been rehabbing, and I think that they're just treating him with kid gloves this week against Illinois State. They're not going to use him unless they have to, because they want to have him fully healthy and ready for Michigan. But Arbuckle did say about Javonte Barnes and Torrey Blaylock, toughness, resiliency, allowed them to practice the way that they wanted to practice. He talked about Torrey Blaylock and how him getting all of these first team reps with Jaden Ott out really sped up his development and even raised his ceiling. So this is a guy that we've talked about on a number of occasions with Torrey Blaylock, that the sky is the limit for him, because he's so fast. He's got great lateral agility. He's tough. He's got good contact balance. You might look at him and look at some of the highlights and think he might just be an outside guy only. No, he can play within the box and he can run between the tackles, and he's going to be able to hold up. The fact that he was able to get so many first team reps this fall camp, because Xavier Robinson was out for most of fall camp. Taylor Tatum's been out for most of fall camp. And as you know, they were down to just two running backs at times, just Javonte Barnes and Torrey Blaylock. Blaylock's had an opportunity to seize an opportunity, and he's taking advantage of that opportunity to where he's going to get a lot of run this week against Illinois State. How much run he gets beyond that, we'll see, but they're going to play him, and they're going to play him a lot because he's earned the opportunity. He's earned the coaching staff's trust, not just with the way he runs the football, but with his ability to pick up blitzers, with his ability out of the backfield. I mean, he's done everything that they've asked him to do, and he's been a team guy about it all. That was kind of the last thing Arbuckle said about Javonte Barnes and Torrey Blaylock, is they've just been team guys. And we know that about Javonte Barnes, right? The way that he was playing the game in the second half of last season, when nothing else was really going well, for Oklahoma. They weren't able to find much offensively. Javonte Barnes was just fighting for every single inch out on the field. And I know that he brought that same mentality to fall camp because they recruited over him. They recruited a guy to come be the guy. And Javonte Barnes said, say less. And he's gone and he's worked and he's continued to show up. He's shown durability. That's a dude that's battled injuries during his time at Oklahoma, but he's been available all fall camp. And that's a lot of the reason why they're listed as, Javonte Barnes is the running back 1 and Torrey Blaylock as the running back 2, is because they've been there. They've shown the toughness and durability that Oklahoma needs from their running game to be able to go perform this season. Jaden Ott's going to get a lot of run. It may not be this week, but he's going to get a lot of carries, a lot of touches. I want to look at a fan reaction here from Frankie Williams. He says, this is the calmest I've seen of Coach B talk about the team. This is exciting. Yeah, I mean, there's a reserved confidence, so to speak, about Brent Venables in this one because he knows what kind of team he's got. He knows he's got a team that's going to go compete. And that's exciting. That's the thing that's exciting about who this team is going to be, because I don't think we're going to be in a situation where Oklahoma gets beat by 10. If Oklahoma loses a game, and I'll say when Oklahoma loses a game because it's been a long time since they've gone undefeated. When Oklahoma loses a game, it won't be by more than 10. It'll be a close game. It'll be a 1-score game, whether it's a touchdown or a field goal. We'll find out. But this is a team that's going to be in every single game. A lot of it because their defense will keep them in every single game, but the offense is going to be able to score to keep up with whatever team that they're playing against, whether it's a good LSU offense or South Carolina or Texas. These are going to be close games. So if you ever see a point spread greater than 10, I'd highly encourage you taking Oklahoma plus the points, because it's going to be a competitive football team. I don't know how many games they're going to win. Nobody knows. But seeing Brent Venables talk about this team with a confidence, and even talking about the players and the way that they've developed and they've grown, and the guys that were part of that 2022 class and how far they've come, like he was even willing to like kind of throw a little shade at some of those guys. Again, conversations that he's had with all of them, but was able to talk about, R. Mason Thomas showing up as a 215-pound defensive end, or Kip Lewis as a 195-pound linebacker, or Grayson Halton as a guy that thought he was going to play tight end at the college level and having to grow. Now he's a 300-pound defensive tackle and he called pass rushing demon. That's the fun part, is like Brent Venables, like he knows this team is going to go and they're going to be a really good football team this year. And they're going to make some noise in the college football landscape and in the SEC. He was asked what he felt like about Mateer, Sooner to you, Sooner for life, about if he knew everything he needed to know about John Mateer. And he said, not really. I mean, yes, I know about everything I need to know about John Mateer because I've been watching film on the guy for 2 years, and he's been as expected. And he's been somebody that's been a leader from the jump, somebody that doesn't flinch. He's always responded well to adversity. And I think that's the thing that Oklahoma fans are going to love about this guy, is a never back down mentality. He's not going to be somebody that shies away from the difficult things. He's not going to be somebody that goes in a shell when things get tough. Does that mean he's going to go win every single game for Oklahoma? Not necessarily, but it does mean you're going to have a guy that goes out and fights for everything. He's going to fight for every yard. He's going to fight for every inch, whether it's against Illinois State or it's against Texas, or it's at the very end of the season against LSU. He's going to put everything on the line for the Oklahoma Sooners. And if I've been reluctant to make the Baker Mayfield comparison, but that's to me where the biggest comparison lies. Not in the passing ability, not in his ability to run. It's in that competitive fire that comes from within. That's the thing that's exciting. And so I can't wait to watch John Mateer play football for this team, because I cannot wait to be behind a guy that I know is going to give 110 to 150% of who he is every single time that he's on the field. So that's exciting. A couple injury things. They didn't really touch on how Giovanni and Jaden Gibson are progressing. There hasn't been any setbacks with Giovanni. Basically everything that we're hearing on Jaden is don't expect him to be available anytime soon. He did have a setback in the summer, it sounded like, or he did have a setback in the spring. I don't know if he had another setback in the summer, but that's one guy that you probably don't want to bank on being available for Oklahoma anytime soon. And I'm okay with that. When I get Jaden Gibson back, and I'd be okay with him just taking off 2025 and coming back in 2026. Be fully healthy when you're back. Don't rush it. Don't put yourself at risk again. Be in a spot where you are 100% and you're 100% confident in your knee, because coming off of a big knee injury, sometimes it can be hard to have all the confidence you need to jump, to cut, all that stuff. And at wide receiver, you got to have your knee to be able to jump and cut. Just wait till you're back. Giovanni, I think we'll see him sooner rather than later, whether it's for the Michigan game or not. I would bet by at least Auburn, he'll be back. Probably by Temple, we start seeing him on the field and running, but then full go by Auburn. So that's a question. Kendall Dolby and Eli Bowen. Brent Venables was asked for an update on Bowen and Dolby. He said he didn't have an update. Again, two guys I don't anticipate being available for Oklahoma anytime soon. It's a bummer. You want to have guys like that out on the field because they're playmakers on defense for Kendall Dolby and Eli Bowen both. And Dolby was expected to play some cornerback. Obviously, Eli Bowen was expected to be your incumbent starter at one of the cornerback spots. Neither one of them is available, so that does hurt you a little bit. But Gentry Williams made it through camp healthy, unscathed, encouraging sign. Cortland Guillory has been one of the stars of camp. Brent Venables spoke about Jacoby Johnson at length and talked about how much he has grown this offseason. He said, when Jacoby got to Oklahoma, he was a more polished wide receiver than he was a cornerback. And so he's had to learn basically how to play cornerback at the collegiate level. And it's been quite a developmental process, but spoke glowingly about what he's done for Oklahoma on special teams and thinks he's made a lot of really strong strides. And so, yeah, that's encouraging, at least that, at cornerback, you're feeling good about the competitive depth that you have available. Obviously, Gentry Williams, if he can be healthy all year long, that gives you a dude that's going to be really, really good and somebody I think could be a top 100 pick in the NFL draft whenever he declares for the draft. Cortland Guillory, he has been somebody that everybody has raved about. Venables made sure to mention, though, that he's gotten beaten fall camp, but he's responded the right way whenever he's gotten beat. He's learned from it. He's learned from his mistakes, and he's gotten better every single time out on the field. So that's exciting. He spoke about the linebacker group and how Kobe McKenzie was probably the most consistent player in fall camp, or consistent linebacker in fall camp. And even went on to say a little bit later that coming out of spring ball, he wasn't so sure about linebacker and where they were at, and if they were going to be okay at linebacker, because they knew the numbers were light, because you're looking at, 4 actual linebackers in Kobe, Kip, Samuel Masigo, and Owen Heineke. They brought in Kendall Daniels to provide some linebacker depth, but also he was a safety that they were trying to convert to, middle linebacker, a weak side linebacker, also while learning cheetah. But he says he feels really, really comfortable with where the linebacker group is now with Kobe, Samuel Masigo, and Kip, and the competition that they've had all, fall camp. And again, he feels like they're in a really, really great place now. So that's really encouraging. Talked about the defensive line depth and just the way that they've been able to develop that depth over the course of his tenure at Oklahoma, and how, when they first got here, that there weren't very many guys, if maybe one guy over 300 pounds on the defensive line. And now you look at it and it's just a bunch of behemoths. But it took time, it took development, it took recruiting and building relationships, and really lauded his coaching staff for what they were able to do on the recruiting trail. And this part was really, really interesting. He talked about that first year, how he didn't necessarily purge the system in that first year, where he processed a bunch of guys like Deion Sanders did up at Colorado, and took a lot of flack for up at Colorado. Brent Venables said he wanted to give everybody an opportunity, and, for better or worse, maybe that didn't work out so well, but talked about how, they didn't have a great GPA for the team. They were 2.2, talked about how a lot of guys weren't going to class, and even a lot of guys didn't pass drug tests, which to me, that was kind of the surprising part. But I think it just goes to show like how long it's took to reestablish the culture at Oklahoma under Brent Venables, defensive staff, and now where they're at. It's been a developmental process. It's been a long process, but I think we would have seen more of what Brent Venables wanted a team to look like last year had the offense been respectable. So I think this year is the year that we see what the vision was for this team, because it's going to be a more competitive team. It's going to be a team that plays with better collaboration. They're going to be playing complementary football, and the offense is going to help the defense. Defense is going to help the offense. And yeah, that's an encouraging sign. So I'm trying to think if there's anything else that, he was asked about the identity of the team and what he wants them to look like. He said he wants a tough physical team, one that's explosive on offense, and that they run the ball very well. They run the ball well. They run the ball the right way, that they're diverse in their run game. That's what he's looking for on offense or on defense. He wants them to stop the run, terrorize the quarterback on third down, dominate third down. And he wants relentless effort and passion from this group. And I think we're going to see that. I really do. I think this is going to be a group that looks really good. We're not going to know exactly what this team is made of against Illinois State. Michigan is going to be a better test. When we see Auburn roll into town, that's going to be an even more, I think, complete version of what this Oklahoma team is capable of. They're going to start peaking as we get to Auburn, Kent State, Texas, and then going towards that end of the season where you have a 7-game stretch against, South Carolina, Ole Miss, Tennessee, Texas, South Carolina, Ole Miss, Tennessee, Missouri, Alabama, LSU. I mean, that's a tough 7-game stretch to talk about the end of the season. Little question here from Alex. He asks, how much playing time do you see Kearney getting? He's one of my favorites. I think this week we'll see him get a lot, but right now, if I remember right, he was like 3rd on the depth chart behind. Let me see if I can find the depth chart real quick. I'm going to pull it up. Zion Kearney was, 3rd on the depth chart, or he was 2nd on the depth chart in a co-situation with Jermichael Carter behind Deion Burks. But I imagine we'll see him a lot. I think, especially this week, we're going to see a lot of guys a lot. They're going to empty the clip, so to speak, where they'll play as many players as they possibly can this week against Illinois State, give everybody as much playing time as possible so that they can start seeing what they got, seeing what this depth has. And again, a guy like Zion Kearney could very well be thrust into the spotlight if there's an injury at wide receiver. I mean, Deion Burks, he's going to be the starter outside with Isaiah Satania in the slot and with Keontez Lewis on the other side. But what happens if you lose a guy like Isaiah Satania or Deion Burks, Zion Kearney, you're going to get an opportunity. So we'll see. But that wide receiver depth is healthier than what it was going into last season. It's a much better place now, even though you're still waiting on Giovanni Gibson to come back. I think you feel better about the quality of player that you have in your starting lineup, in your 2 deep, and you feel better about their ability to go out and make plays. So I'm excited about that. And let us know what you thought of Brent Venables' press conference. If there was anything that really stood out to you from that. This just looks like a team that is going to go and be a good team. And they're going to play a tough Illinois State team this week. I say tough from an FCS standpoint, but a team that Brent Venables was very complimentary of, talking about their coach being the winningest coach in Illinois State history. They were a playoff team last year, the number 6 team in the nation in the FCS, and they were a 10-win team. So they'll be a team that brings it to Oklahoma. Now there will be a talent difference, but can the Oklahoma Sooners avoid any kind of lapses in coverage or lapses in physicality or aggressiveness? So those will be the kind of things that we look for when we watch this game on Saturday evening. But that's going to do it for this live edition of Locked On Sooners, where we just react to what Brent Venables and Ben Arbuckle had to say. If you missed it earlier, talked about Jaren Kanak, and Ben Arbuckle was very complimentary of Jaren Kanak, and he just said, hey, he earned the opportunity. He earned the right to go start with the first team. He earned his playing time through playmaking ability, through consistency, and doing everything the right way out there on the field. But again, we'll be back every single week about this time, breaking down and reacting to Brent Venables' press conference. So again, make sure you're subscribed to Locked On Sooners wherever you get your podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Follow Jay at Unfair Sports. Go check out his channel, Unfair Sports, on YouTube. You can follow me at John 9 Williams and read my work covering the Sooners over at SoonersWire.com. But until next time, for my buddy Jay, I'm John Boomer Sooner.